言うことは一つだけ。絶対負けねえ。この好機は逃せない。
俺の肉体に不可能はない。
俺のスピードを見せてやる。
芸術的なサッカーを見せてやる。
How's it going, everyone? This is Nothing Excess here with a new player analysis video. We've got the new Swedish banner that just came up and a couple of hidden ability players and an event player. We've got Stefan Levin, the recovered Burning Spirit, Larson, the Swedish Jet, Brolin, fullback huge athletic shooter, Salvatore Gentile, Italy's new star, Federix, the foot magician, and Taro Misaki, samurai of the City of Light. So without any delay, let's get right into it. I'll start with Stefan Levin, the recovered Burning Spirit. He doesn't look all that strong at first glance, but properly looking at all of his passive buffs should reveal a surprising secret. He actually self-buffs by 20%. So, you're thinking about this. Well, how so? Well, so long as he's anywhere in the central midfield, he just has 15% because of his passive. One of his hidden abilities is that he buffs Swedish players by 5%. So if you take that in mind, if you run him with a full utility build, he turns into a 12.2k dribbler, 14.4k passer, 12.2k tackler, and 12.5k pass cutter, all of which put together make for an incredibly competent utility midfielder and powerful enabler. If you add to that the fact that he builds an extra 5% full power every time he wins a matchup, as well as the fact that he has a 50% auto pass cut passive for hidden ability, and he wraps the entire package up nicely with the only other non-distance decay pass in the game. The only other one is Matsuyama's Evil Pass. Also, he debuffs every enemy European team by 5%. Well, you have a pretty solid package of nonsense ready for the taking. He's also one of the European players with a green Euro Solidarity team skill, which is excellent, and I'm happy K-Lab is quickly introducing the European Solidarity skills here. All of that said, he competes with the old hidden ability Levin for a spot on a team due to Levin's plus 2% green buff, high ball access, and propensity for killing German players, of which Europe runs plenty. That said, this guy is actually kind of broken. He does basically everything really, really well, and he does it in two positions to boot. He's an attacking midfielder and a defensive midfielder. His roles, he has so many of them. He's an enabler, he provides utility, he has debuffs, he has buffs, and he clogs the field. He's easily double S tier. Like, it's actually kind of crazy how understated of an S tier he is, because when you actually look at when I talk about him a little bit in a couple moments, you'll see what I mean by understated double S tier. Should you pull for him if you need a European in green, or if you need a better version of 11? Yes, immediately. Taking a look at his hidden abilities, he's got 5 of them. Auto intercept enhanced middle. It's a 50% auto pass cut and might not be as overwhelming as it used to be, but I mean, who are we kidding? It's still overwhelming. Any sort of auto pass cut, even if it's 50%, is pretty crazy. It only works in the midfield though, which is really easy if you put him at like central defensive midfielder in a 3-1-4-2, or one of the defensive, or one of the like the central areas in AM, whatever. My team all stats plus 5%. It's limited to Swedish players only, which is a little rough, but it's still good for Rainbow European teams that run many Swedish players. And it's an easy 5% self buff. Bumpy ground resistance, whatever, PvE stuff, cool beans. Opponent stats minus 5%. It basically means opposing European teams are hit with a 5% debuff. It's actually enormously good. It makes him an interesting player to run on the bench if you're playing, say, Green Japan Solidarity and are having trouble with a Europe team, which shouldn't be the case because you're playing Japan, but, you know, it's an option. Finally, full power gauge up. Win a matchup and get 5% bonus full power. It's not broken, but it's not bad. Now, for his limit breaks, we've got here probably my preferred way to go. It's what you do if you want to be a multiple option threat on the field, considering he has great dribbling, tackling, passing, and interception, and great skills for all those things. You go utility, 16, 16, 18 on dribble tackle speed, and 17, 17, 16 on pass intercept technique. Now, if you want to fully commit to passing and interceptions, probably the way to do it. Instead, you may want to emphasize speed to get in the way of more passes for your auto pass cut. You go technique master, which is speed, pass, intercept, technique, all 25. For his grading, yeah, you're going to look at this and go, wait, what? If you think about him for more than a few minutes, you start to realize how wild he is. He can pass or dribble, he has a long distance pass, he has access to S and A tackles, both of which are good. He has a good A cut that he comes with, and he can learn the S one. He needs no one else to be good. He can play 2 positions. He has over 1,000 stamina. He has plenty of access to skills. His hidden abilities buff himself and debuff Europeans, and also give him an auto intercept. He's actually a complete and total package of nonsense. I was actually really not expecting to give the grading I did here. I feel like a lot of people are going to see this and go, he can't be that good. But remember that he gives himself 20% buffs just for existing in the midfield. He's actually kind of wild. His only detriment is that there's no green European goalkeeper yet, and that isn't his fault. He's amazing at enabling. He has a long distance S pass that caps at 440. That's crazy. That's Eagle Pass, basically. That's double S enabling. He has a great access to S pass cut, good defensive stats that are great in the midfield, and also access to a good tackle with also good tackling stats. That's basically double S defense. You can make an argument it's S defense, but because it's an auto pass cut, it's double S. Because he has an auto pass cut, and because he's also really good at tackling, it's really hard to want to like run into a matchup for him. That means he applies an immense amount of pressure. And because of his pass, because of the fact that he has an S long distance pass, he puts a lot of pressure on the midfield also, on the field anywhere also, because he can send the ball to whoever he wants with basically no repercussions. He's fiercely independent. He doesn't need anybody else to be good at what he does. He just has to be placed somewhere on the field. Very flexible. He can play attacking midfielder or defensive midfielder, and he plays both of them very well, and he can be built to be either a better passer enabler or a better utility man. He has more than 1,000 stamina, and like in the higher areas of 1,000 stamina. That makes him very durable. His skill support is intense. He has skills for basically everything. His hidden skills are excellent. He has an amazing team skill, which is European Super Solidarity, and his passive just gives him 50% stats for existing. I don't understand how this character is not wildly nuts. And like his stats are also like distributed in such a way that he can take advantage of all of this. Like, what a wild character. Like a lot of people at the beginning I was like, I'm not sure, but that's because I was asleep or like sleepy, and I hadn't really done the math yet. Then I actually sat down and did the math. I was like, oh, this character's broken. This character is wildly good. This character is actually probably better than anything they released during Japan, but because he's European and Europe is not as good of a team, like he brings Europe up, but he's not broken. The funny thing is that he's also technically not better than World Cup Aoi, but he's really close, and the reason is because World Cup Aoi can also score. Like if you think about all that, World Cup Aoi does all these things, but also can score. And World Cup Aoi, what this character has that World Cup Aoi lacks though, is that World Cup Aoi is not independent at all. And this character, so long as you can pass him some buffs, is a monster. He doesn't need any other players to be good. If you just Super Solidarity this Levin into your red Japan team, he's still good. If you just Super Solidarity this character into your like green Asian team, he's still good. Aoi wouldn't be. This character would be. So this character is actually up there for like probably some of the best characters in the game. It's how good he is. For his stats, 1,085 stamina, pretty good. As you can see, his stat distribution means he has no block and no shot, which made it very easy to give him 9k dribble, 10.8k pass, 9k tackle, and 9.2k intercept. And since he gets 20% to all these things, he's actually much higher in the end. For his skill build, S New 11 pass is what he comes with. A Aurora Feint, what he comes with. I would probably upgrade the Aurora Intercept to the S version. Also, there's A Aurora Curtain and A 4 Knights of the Midnight Sun. Hear me out on the A1 too though. You can ostensibly run him in Rainbow Europe and want to use that skill, or even Green Euro Solidarity later on with the rest of them. Might feel like not the best idea, but since you buff them all by 5%, it might actually be pretty worthwhile to make room for the other players. That said, use the S Intercept if you plan on leveling it to at least 30, otherwise just max the A1 instead, as it has more utility overall. Pretty much one of the best midfielders in the entire game. There's just nothing wrong with him, and I would just use him. If you get him, use him. You probably find ways to fit him into any team you have, especially if you're running a Solidarity European team. This is kind of pretty much the character that is worth splashing, right? He's not a buff, like he's not a totem, buffing totem, but he's pretty strong. Next up, we've got Larson, the Swedish Jet. Larson's weird in that he's an intensely fast midfielder whose job is to tackle the ball, then dribble it up the field, but who has a few limitations on doing anything else with that other than a decent amount of passing and a less decent amount of intercepting. Not only that, but he's pretty much expected to primarily deal with the opponent's defense and not their offense because he has a 50% killer against defensive midfielders and defenders. The end result is this weird amalgamation of a character with 10k dribble and 10.8k tackle, whose only good dribble is a 420 momentum dribble for 230 stamina that you can only get from a frankly hard to obtain red version of him. His less than optimal passing stat also means that having his A pass be precise pass means he's also going to have a rough time of delivering the ball to someone else who is better positioned once he runs up the side of the field. His most redeeming quality though is that he's a less common European player with Super Solidarity with no must-run versions of him elsewhere. It's easy to have him ride the bench, and because of that. If he's to start, he's better off paired with the new hidden ability 11, as he will make him 5% stronger. All in all, he's a decent utility attacking midfielder who lives by the motto speed kills but doesn't really do much else. Position as attacking midfielder, his role is utility. He's A tier. He's not bad enough to be B tier. He has a lot of utility. Like if you have to run him, he's not going to be bad at what he does, but he's not the kind of character that wouldn't be too good enough that you wouldn't be able to give him an A tier, right? Like, what he does solidly enough that he can beat players. It's not like a character with a very, very specific role that does almost nothing else. It's a character that actually has a role that will help your team. He's fast enough that if you give him the ball, he can run it up all the way to the side of the field and enable a forward by beating the offside trap. And so there is utility to that, and he is very, very good at tackling, and so that's not that bad. For his limit breaks, listen, you got to go fast, so go fast. You can go all in on pass or intercept depending on what you prefer, of course, but in this case, we're assuming you want to be decent enough with your S pass cut and your A pass, so this is how you do it. You go with the speed kills, 25 all dribble tackle speed, and then 997 pass intercept technique. Now, if you did want to focus on one of them, you could do 22-3 of either pass or intercept with technique. It's up to you which one you would prefer. Now, for a second one, it's not his primary limit break, but it's a good one nonetheless. You sacrifice a little bit of speed to make that A pass a bit more viable. Also, since you can learn an S pass cut, it's not a terrible idea to go this route. And this would be the dribble tackle speed, 16-16-18, 17-17-16 pass intercept technique utility. You should be familiar with this one by now. I give it very, very often to a lot of different players. For his grading, it's kind of sad that he has 197 stamina because that really does sort of pigeonhole him into the second half run up the field and dribble sub role, rather than as a titular role as a featured member of your offense. He also doesn't have a whole lot of skill support, though he does have at least a few of every skill he'll probably need to be effective overall. His passive is a little too rough on him considering the matchups he's going to want to get into. He's probably carried into the A tier by virtue of his team skill alone, but there's a place for this player on the field when the going gets tough. He's a D scorer, but he is an A enabler and defender. He applies B pressure. It's not terrible, but it's not great. He is very independent though. He doesn't need anything else, but because he can't really... So there's times where, because depending on what kind of player he's going to run up to, you might have to drop the ball off to somebody else before he even makes it to try to swing it in. So yeah, he's not very flexible and not very durable at all. He has middling skill support, but he does have a little bit of everything, thankfully. His team skill is fantastic, and his passive is kind of whatevs, but it's not that bad. For stamina, again, 897, not too good. His stats do add up to 10k dribble, 10.8k tackle, 8.6k pass, and 8.1k intercept. Again, like I was saying, his pass is really not that bad. It's just that because he has an A generic pass, it's not as good as it could be. For his skill build, he comes with S Supersonic Tackle. You're going to keep that. If you have the red version, a spare one, give him the world's foremost legs. Also, A Precise Pass, what he comes with. He also comes with A High Speed Dribble. You might as well keep it there. And then S Swift Interception if you can. The advantage of S Swift Interception will always be that you can level it up about 10 times per league coin period. If you have no one else to give those 10 levels of S Swift Interception and you're trying to run Green Europe, he's as worthy of carrying that around as anyone else. Now, if you didn't keep a version of the Dream Pot Larson to have access to the S skill, I would instead recommend the A High Speed Interception, which isn't all that bad. Next up, we've got Brolin, the only red player in the actual banner. Brolin, fullback, huge-legged shooter, or huge-legged shooter, depending on how you want to pronounce that. It's up to you. So here's the thing about Red Europe. It's a complete archetype that was sort of missing a defender or two because you only had Red Brolin that was a Hugo killer. And he wasn't really all that good unless you ran into Hugo, which you were going to, so, you know, maybe not so terrible. But anyway, now you get this crazy bastard instead. This guy has a lot of shooting power for basically no discernible reason, with 12k out of the DMDF slot. You're thinking, hey, that's basically like Roberto Carlos, and yep, that's correct. It's basically like Roberto Carlos. The real attractive things pile on after, though. He's also a 10k blocker, which is really not all that bad, and he does a reasonable job of tackling as well at 8.9k. On top of that, his passive is pedal to the metal, and it's a 20% buff for entering full power, which is quite decent. Finally, with his team skill being plus 17% to all red-type European players, it's an easy call to run him if you're already running Red Europe, because that archetype doesn't really splash into any other units outside of the archetype. Like, your goalkeeper is Red Mueller, and now you're going to give him 17% from one player. Red Mueller buffs himself by 2%, everybody else. You've got the Robson there giving 4% to your entire team, etc., etc. His big leg will be helpful from free kicks, and if you play him more centrally or even at the defensive midfielder position, you could drop the ball onto him and hit full power as his shot has no distance decay. With the suggested limit break and during full power, his shot is a 73k, one blow away long distance shot. That's actually hilariously decent in a lot of ways, and any decently placed free kick from him should be quite scary as a result. Positions, again, defensive midfielder and defender. His roles are sniper and defense. He's S tier. He's actually very comfortably S tier. His shot is so strong that it is like an extra shooting threat out of the defensive side of the field, which you weren't really expecting out of a player. Would I pull for him? Well, maybe. I don't know if I would pull for him for sure. He's definitely a good addition. If you're playing Red Europe, you want him. Otherwise, Rainbow Europe may prefer like the Green Brolin or somebody else that's more defensively minded. But because Red Europe is so shooting happy, you may want to go that way instead. For his limit break, he's the only player that will ever use the build I'm about to propose, to be honest. Get some speed to get into a better position if necessary before you shoot, and bumping up your tackle just a bit. You go all in on blocking and shooting, which gives you 1500 to both of them, and that's pretty efficient. The Brolin Special, 25 shot block power, you're not going to see that one very often except for like Vulcan. And then 25 speed. Now if you're resigned to not needing to get to matchups faster and would just rather have an easier time in the matchups you can actually get to, try this instead. It's not particularly useful since 1010 tackle isn't really that big of a difference for 500 in the long run. Some people will prefer this overall. So basically it's the same thing as the Brolin Special, but you break out speed into 22-3 tackle speed. You'll be slower, you won't get places that you want to be better or faster, so repositioning him will be hard. But, you know, maybe you don't care, maybe you just want to tackle the ball away and shoot as soon as you get the ball, regardless of where you're placed. Maybe that's what you want. For his grading, remember that 20% pedal to the metal is good enough to consider it an S tier passive. It is normally looked down upon for being situational, but 20% is like a good amount of buff for being situational. It's weird that a character with so many A's would be considered S tier, right? Well, it comes down to the fact that the amount of pressure having a long distance shot like that exerts on the opponent is significant enough to put a little fear in opponents, particularly when you're running against a goalkeeper that doesn't have a very large gas tank. He's an S scorer, he's horrible at enabling, he really can't do it. He's an A defender, he'd be a little bit better if maybe he had like 11k block, but he only has like 10k, so Pressure S and independence S, he doesn't need anybody else and he's very fast. Flexibility A, you know, he's not very flexible even though he can play two different positions. That is actually the only reason why his flexibility is A. He's not particularly durable, he's like at the lower end of 900. He has pretty decent skill support at least, and his team skill and passes are both good. Again, 923 stamina. As you can see, his dribble and pass are terrible. That results in 12k shot, 8.9k tackle, 10k block, and 7.6k intercept. Not terrible. He's also pretty solid against high ball, so if he does play defender and you have to match him up against someone who's high up in the air, your block is stronger. For his skill build, S Rising Bazooka is what he comes with. Try to give him the S muscle block and the S Rising tackle, and he also comes with A muscle pass. He's pretty one-dimensional. You can put whatever you want in the last slot of the skills he has access to. Can't really put many of them to good use as it is, so just pick whatever makes you happy, put it there in the 5th slot. His S muscle intercept doesn't particularly inspire with his low intercept stat, and his pass is cool, but it's a little on the weak side in terms of momentum, and his passing stat isn't that great either. Something like A power tackle might fit in there pretty well since it's easy to farm up nowadays with SRs, so consider that as an option. You just slot in A power tackle there as your 5th skill. Next up, we've got Salvatore Gentile, Italy's new star. I know that it's not the last Swedish player, but because it's red, it makes my transitions easier. Man, Gentile really hates Japanese people, dude. Featuring a pretty good set of hidden abilities, a solid 10k block that's backed up by Stand Firm, one of the old school, originally busted hidden abilities in the game, and the ability to completely maul the stats of arguably one of the best players in the game, Aoi, or at least one of his versions, this character is on some next level stuff. The way he does his defending in a matchup with his blocks isn't quite like, say, Dream Collection Gentile, who's very strong in the box and makes others stronger. While that Gentile is happy to counter the stats of Japanese opponents, this version instead is more than happy to just meet them in a matchup to dare them to shoot, because if they do, their shot will always be weaker getting through him, so long as he didn't guess the tackle against a shooter. Not only that, but he makes any Japanese player's shot or any move really cost 30% more than it ought to. He has one of the more brutal stamina killer passives in the game. 30% is very, very high. To add to the mix, he prevents debuffs to his European teammates to the tune of 5%, counteracting, for example, Nanbasa's 5% debuff outright. And, you know, in case you were planning on running some version of Gino Hernandez, particularly, say, the 18 version, who is red, they'll get buffed 5% right out of the gate. A great and eclectic set of hidden abilities paired with the original best passive in the game makes for a great central defender. He is a defender, his roles are defense, protect is basically debuff shields, and that's a new role. Some characters are going to be used just for that. And roll counter also, because he counters Aoi super hard and he counters Japanese players super hard. He's S tier, even though the way he counters Japanese players is a little different to the way that the Dream Collection one does. And it's up to you to determine which one you think more valuable. I think actually this one might be a little more valuable. Simply because, for example, if you run into like, say, a Stormy Hyuga, you could just throw a block at him because he has to shoot, otherwise he loses the ball. So you're gonna weaken the shot, and also he's gonna pay way more stamina than he has to, and all of his shots are very expensive, right? So that's an idea. Would I pull for him? I mean, if you don't already have him, then yeah, sure, maybe he's not bad, but definitely not anymore. He used to be a little weaker, but now Stand Firm plus all this other stuff is very strong. For his hidden abilities, opponent stats minus 10%. Are you Aoi? You now have tax in your shoes. This brutalizes any opponent's Aoi by 10%. It may force them to bench him depending on how neutralized he becomes. Stamina Killer Japan. All Japanese players he matches up against have to pay 30% more stamina to do things. Secretly also great on offense, as it may let you dandy pass completely uncontested by an opposing striker or midfielder because they don't want to spend all of that stamina getting the ball back from freaking Gentile. Snow and snow cover resistance. Awesome. Excellent. My team, all stats plus 5%. If you're Gino Hernandez, enjoy a 5% buff. If not, well, it sucks to suck. And my team stat, handicap resistance. If it might not be a blanket debuff shield, but being able to counter Nambasa's debuffs hard does devalue Nambasa a bit. That said, the existence of this will encourage more players to play Nambasa less and instead play the new Dreamfest Tsubasa more. And that character is frightening, so take that for what it's worth. For his limit breaks, you could tackle, you could block, so do both of those things. No complications here. Throw out an A power tackle or leveled S right angle defense at opponents trying to get around you from afar or in solo matchups. Wipe block or use your S block for every other encounter. It's just tackle block, tackle speed block power 25. Now if you're okay adding less tackle to make sure you get in the way of plenty of shots via speed, but you also want to be able to pass cut an okay amount in a matchup, you could try the fast complete defender, which is speed block power 25 and intercept technique 22-3. For his grading, Stand Firm applies a lot of pressure, to be honest. It forces opposing forwards to try and play around it because they don't want their mid-distance shot to run into someone's chest and have its power reduced and make it an easy save for the goalkeeper. That said, his base blocking skill isn't that great and he'd be much better served with a much better block, but unless you have a dupe of the Dreamfest version, you're probably not going to be able to give him something better. A lot of players, as a result, don't bother really using blocking skills with him and try to find ways to make him the second player in a matchup so he can just wipe block and cleave off a significant amount of power from the shot before it gets to the goalkeeper. Scoring D, enabling C, really not any good at that, and he's not very flexible. He can only play defense, and he's really kind of slotted to the defensive, the central defender position. But he is an S defender. He applies S pressure. Stand Firm does apply a lot of pressure, makes people play differently. S independence. He doesn't really need any other teammates. He's S durability. He has actually a good amount of durability. His stamina did go up pretty well. And he has S hidden skills. Arguably, you could say they're double S, but I think they're just S. And his team skills is S because it's just European plus 10%. It's not that bad, but his skill support and his passive are excellent. He is a very old player, so he has a lot of skill support. And his passive, Stand Firm, is just still, to this day, one of the best passives in the game. For his stats, stamina 1034. Again, pretty good stamina. As you can see from his actual stuff, 7.4k dribble and 7.7 pass are not awful, but they're not good. And inexplicably, he's got like 8.2k shot, but you're never going to use that. But he does have 9.1k tackle, 8.9k intercept, and his highest stat is 10.5k block. For his skill build, S dandy block, you can't get rid of it, so you're going to have to leave it there. And he comes with a dandy pass, and that one's actually pretty decent. Level that one up. If you have a spare block to give him the S New Star block because it's absolutely excellent, and it actually does a lot of work here. Spare S right angle defense would be nice, but an A1 will be fine, so would an A power tackle or an A high power tackle. Or the AA right angle defense, you know. You could put that there instead. And a dandy interception if you have it, or the S1 if you have a spare one and you don't mind doing that. If you have a spare block, again, to give him, do that. S dandy block is bad, and investing in it feels bad. If you don't really have a high level S right angle defense already, an A power tackle, A high power tackle, A right angle defense is more than enough to fill the tackle slot, but it will be significantly less terrifying to run into him or run into an opponent. For the last player of the Swedish banner, we've got Fedrix, the Foot Magician. He's an 80% auto interceptor in the midfielder for blue European teams or teams who run several Swedes, with a 10k base intercept, not that great, and a decently powered S intercept skill, much better. This is definitely not the worst midfielder you could be running in blue Europe, but he's certainly not really the best. The most interesting part of him, honestly, is the auto cut. Certainly comes with two S skills, one his S intercept at 450 momentum, 365 stamina, but the other is a somewhat underpowered S dribble at 405 momentum and 235 stamina, which is quite frankly pretty weak. That said, he does have 11k dribble to make up for it, so it's not all a loss here. He also has a deceptively bad amount of shot at 9.6k. It feels and looks like it should be better, but it really isn't, so don't get baited. The entire package is rounded out by an 8.6k pass, which is not bad, but it's not great, and the only thing he has to use it with is a 265 momentum, 155 stamina A pass. Again, the problem with a low momentum skill. All in all, Fedrix is pretty easy to understand player. He cuts the ball, dribbles it up, then dumps it off to somebody else. He's basically like Larson, but in blue and with a more useful way of doing it, which is by cutting passes. Standard utility clogger stuff. Bonus, he has the blue Europe super solidarity, so there is that. He is an attacking midfielder, his roles are utility and clogger. Tier, A tier, not bad. pull, again, it's just like with Larson. You need the super solidarity? If so, go for it. If not, don't bother. For his limit breaks, you can learn strong tackle, so it's possible you may want to commit to that. If that's the case, utility is a good build. Just full utility, 16, 16, 18, dribble tackle speed, 17, 17, 16, pass intercept technique. Now you may not care about strong tackle. You may want to just dribble and go real fast and also intercept real well. That might be more to your speed. Cut and run 25. Cut and run, that means 25 dribble speed, intercept technique, all 25s. For his grading, super solidarity and 80% auto interception make for a great combination of team skills and passives, to be quite honest. The rest of him's okay, but he doesn't feel very powerful, as if he was worse than the sum of his parts. Basically, it feels like the way he's put together, being focused on dribble, actively hurts him way more than he should. His scoring is just a C, but his enabling is an A. Defense, pressure, and independence, all S. Flexibility and durability, A's. Skill support, C, but his team skill and his passive are both quite excellent. Stamina, 198. A little bit low. Not quite that good, but it's basically 900, so it's really not that bad. He does have 11k dribble and 9.6k shot. Again, that's kind of a bait. 8.6k pass and 10.7k intercept. For a skill build, listen, there's not much else to build on him. You could take an S long distance shot if you wanted, but I don't see the point given that the shot's never going to score. S technical intercept, S technical dribble, A technical pass, A technical dribble, so you have a alternative that's easier to farm, and the A strong tackle. And that's pretty much it. There's really nothing else to say about this character. It's how simple he is. Very straightforward. Low skill support characters are always like this. Finally, we have the event player Tara Misaki, Samurai of the City of Light, and really there's really no explaining this unit right now. He is a Japanese junior youth player who buffs Europeans on your team. He becomes 5% stronger if played with 4 other Japanese players because of his link, but also 5% stronger if played with 4 other European players. He gives you 10% full power anytime he wins a matchup. He has hidden ability Dream Collection D as his passive, but much weaker. If he wins a matchup, he gets 5% buffs, stacking up to 50%. He has an S dribble and an A1-2 that uses Napoleon, and an A pass. All this, the A pass is actually quite good. Everything about him is pretty weird. He's the first player in a meta that doesn't yet exist, with 47k stats and 183 stamina, and a balanced set of stats at 9.4k dribble, 9.3k shot, and 9k pass. Without his limit break, if he can fully engage his hidden abilities, he hits 10.3k dribble, 10.3k shot, and 9.9k pass. None of this is really all that crazy. With 3 matchup win bonus, it gets to 11.7k dribble, 11.7k shot, and 11.2k pass. He more or less isn't a must-have player in so much as he's a curiosity. He has a neat team skill that gives him 10% to both Japanese and European players, so there is that. I really don't know what to think of him right now, like at all. Time will tell. I don't think he's a good player right now in the current meta, but he might be eventually. But I don't know what he's supposed to do. So he's attacking midfielder and a defensive midfielder. His role is enabler. I don't know what else he does yet. I just don't know. Enabler might be the most generous description for him. He's not quite a striker. He doesn't have access to a whole lot of shots, and the kind of team you want to run him with may not be the best for the kinds of shots he learns. I'm unsure what tier he belongs in. I honestly am. Like, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of him. I just think he's interesting. That's it. Here are his hidden abilities. Nationality Link Japan and Nationality Link Europe. 5% bonus stats for 4 Japanese players or for 4 European players. So if you have 4 Japanese on the field that aren't him and 4 European on the field that aren't him, he gets 10% bonus. He has bumpy ground resistance. Cool. All stats plus 2%, a free 2% bonus to European players with no activation rate or caveat is nice. It doesn't matter that he isn't impacted by it. He just gives European players a free bonus. Full power gauge up. If you win a matchup, get 10% to your full power. That's pretty nice. S tier. Building him straight utility doesn't make sense because of his stats, because his defensive stats are really bad. But making him a shooter doesn't make sense. So here's a full enabler build. 25 dribble speed pass technique. Now if you think the nationality links and guessing right will be enough to get you somewhere with a standard utility build, just run that. 16, 16, 18 dribble tackle speed, 17, 17, 16 pass intercept technique. For his grading, the only reason his defense isn't lower is because having his stats buffed by his hidden abilities and also the fact he has access to good skill support helps keep that defense pretty solid. It's really hard to talk about this Misaki because the team he wants to play in doesn't exist yet. You need Blue Japan solidarity with mostly European influence, and everyone wants to run Roberto, not Morientes, because that's the guy that buffs everything, right? Scoring B, defense B. He's a good enabler. He's very flexible. He has a good hidden abilities. He's got good team skill. His durability and his passive are pretty nice. And he has excellent skill support. He's Misaki. I'm just really lost with this guy. I don't know what to say. Now 183 stamina, 9.4k dribble, 9.3k shot, 9k pass. Everything else is kind of questionable. As always, Misaki is very good at low balls actually. For his skill build, he comes with an S international dribble, A impromptu duo Misaki and Napoleon, and A magnificent pass. Just leave him there. And give him A elegant tackle and A magnificent interception EX. I frankly don't know what else to give him. It's a complete midfielder build and it will serve you well in the kind of team this Misaki wants to be running. I just am not sure that what kind of team can really exist yet, or if it can really exist at all. At the very least, this Misaki is ready for that dream to happen. He might be low-key good in the Dream Championship now that I think about it, but I can't imagine what kind of team runs him, except the team that has to split its buffs to try to fit a bunch of players in it. Anyway, thank you all for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and click the like button and leave a comment telling me what you think. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please subscribe and click the little bell icon to be notified of when new videos or posts are made before checking out the rest of the channel. Also, if you would like to support my work, you can do so by either leaving a tip by clicking on the Streamlabs link in the description, or by joining my Patreon where you can subscribe monthly and enjoy the unique benefits available to my Patreon subscribers. You can check that out by following the Patreon link below or using the URL shown in the video. Thank you guys for checking this out. I hope to see you all soon.